but I think my definition of transgressive writings is just a little bit different. I've always eliminated the idea of shock value from transgressive fiction. I'm just not a shock person. I think growing up, we'll go back to music, right? When Nine Inch Nails, Marilyn Manson, and the "I Want to Be Like an Animal" and all that stuff, that was all very shocky. Uh, Now, mind you, I love the lyrics and all that stuff. I also thought at the time, as a dumb kid, this is just shock, and I don't care for it. And I still kind of feel that way. It's kind of stuck with me forever. So I'm more of a real emotions person, and I think if I'm talking about my characters transgressing, they transgress emotionally into sort of a hell that they latch onto, and in fact stir up more hell. And I think that for me that counts. Um, it might not be falling into. I mean, there's a lot of drinking in my books, but my characters they don't fall into drinking. The point isn't drugs or drinking or violence. It's just a pure emotional degradation of oneself. And so, in that sense, I do feel like there's a bit of transgressive. I think with that story called Lucid America, there was that was trying to be a little more transgressive probably than anything else because I kind of wanted to. So that was a little more on purpose or purposeful than my other books. The other books are just written, and I think at this point I don't try really to do anything in particular. But I do think that comes out once in a while as a human being. So.
Just still on the topic of shocking, like I think there's not much room to shock people at this point because there are so many platforms where everything is exposed, like the likes of OnlyFans and all that. Like 20 years ago, you need to find the magazine or need to wait for parents to be sleeping and all that. I don't want to get into adult content, but in general, violence or things that you'll not be told to see. Now it's just they are at your fingertips access. So do you think that discourage writers to present things that are ugly because there are
I
ugly
should
things
disagree with you,
everywhere?
Vitor. Yes, there are so many things these days. Like everything is too open. Like the let's focus on film and TV series, right? Um, they are so much out there, and you can see so many things that possibly in the past you couldn't, right? The shock is gone. I agree. But what shocks people the most? They watch all of these gore, they watch all of these terrible things that happen to people, killing, rape, everything, okay? But what shocks the most, what shocked them the most is when you talk about truth. People hate
Yeah.
truth. And when you talk about that, they will point at you, they hate you, they write bad comments on your books, or they want to destroy you. Why? Because you talk truth and people want to close their eyes. If it's in the fiction world, even if, for example, when you go toward dark romance, for example, they are kidnapping, they are killing, they are raping, but it's fine because it's the character they like and it's romance and sugar coated, the terrible thing. But if you talk about it in a real situation, it's then that they are offended. So still there is shock value, but it's only about truth.
So there is hope. We can still shock humanity. We just need to
Yeah,
expose the
yeah.
truth.
Just tell them
Absolutely.
the truth.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, because it's brutal. But the truth, it's not always pretty. So it needs to be put on the corner that people can get on with their lives. And if someone has the courage to expose, of course, there will be repercussions.
To be real. If you are real, people don't like it.
I
And
know.
you mentioned the boys, and I mean I've been a Garth Ennis fan since Garth Ennis, right? And so whenever I've read anything of his, it's always been real, and it's also really absurd, and it's very ironic and witty, and the humor in it. Again, we come back to that. I think he's Ireland or something. Ellis and Ennis, I mix them up, but the humor in that writing, which I mentioned, like Patrick McCabe the other day too, Like, these guys managed to take really, really horrific things and make them both ironic and a little bit humorous and a little bit scary without it being so shocking. The shock is that you could look at it with that kind of mindset. It's shocking. And The Boys does a very, very good job of that, and modernizes it quite a bit.
So you guys are very close to Outcast Press, and they just released an anthology called Slut Vomit. I know you are part of that. It's a great title. Both of you are part of that. Apologies, and it's a great title. Was it a suggestion of you?
You cannot
we are being censored here.
Yeah.